Good evening, everyone. I hope that we learned something together about Zoom tonight. And please know that I think you can ask questions. I hope you can ask questions. I certainly want to make this as interactive as possible. I'm not sure that the webinar format is necessary for this kind of meeting, but that's what we use because you never know how many people are going to come. And our other accounts are limited to, I think, 100 participants at a time. So here we go. My name is Matthew Plummer, and I'm sitting in my high school office. So that's what this background is. But you'll learn in a few minutes. You can change your background if you want. As well, we're here to learn a little about Zoom. So without further ado, let me share my screen and get started. I have a little slide presentation that might make sense to step through because when you're in Zoom, you can't easily show all the sort of controls that users have, as well as the presenter, the host, has. And in fact, we're in a different environment than our students and teachers would be actually in when they're Zooming. So hence the slide deck. So I'll share my screen and then we'll talk a little bit about how this all sort of works. So this is the PowerPoint or Google Slides deck that we can step through. So there I have Zoom, the video conferencing tool that has taken the world by storm. My name is Matthew Plummer. I've been fortunate to work in Hanover schools since 1990, and I have to say I'm prouder than ever of the students, the families, and the teachers that I'm lucky enough to go to school with every day. This isn't easy, living in the pandemic and trying to go through school each day and learn as much as possible. But the kids, parents, obviously, and the teachers are really working hard to make it work, and it is working. Zoom is one of the tools we use, primarily used for teachers to connect with the remote students at home. It basically is a video conferencing tool, similar to Skype or Google Meets if you've used those, where, as you can tell, I can share my screen, you can hear me, and if you did talk, I could hear you. We could actually have a conversation. You could use Zoom or any of the other tools like this to attend a birthday party, to maybe play trivia with your friends. There's all sorts of things that I've done with my family. It's kind of nice. But in terms of our uses for Hanover and what the teachers are doing, teachers will be using this to connect with students and families at home on remote days for sure. When cohort A is in school and cohort B is at home, or vice versa, as well as the Wednesday full remote to be able to connect. In addition, you'll hear more about this in the future, but we're actually going to try to hold parent-teacher conferences through Zoom by utilizing the waiting room and allowing parents to schedule times in which they can connect and ask questions about how their child's doing, what kind of progress they're making, and what things they're doing really well at, and what things they might want to work on. So you'll definitely want to know as much as you can about Zoom. So first question I want to address is, do you actually need an account to use Zoom? And the answer in general is no, you don't need an account. Anyone can join a Zoom meeting. If you have the link, you click on it, you can join the meeting. But you do need an account if you want to host a meeting, if you want to start a meeting, like I did tonight. That said, you do need an account if you want to use some of the advanced or enhanced features that Zoom has to offer. And some of those are around gathering data around Zoom reports, meeting times, who attended, who didn't attend. Also, the ability to see the students' answers to polling questions. We'd really want to know which students are attached to which answers, so we'd like them to log in. And finally, there's actually a little security enhancement that we can turn on, and many teachers already have, if students are actually using accounts. So to that end, we have enabled Zoom accounts for all students, grades 3 through 12, through their regular old school email. And most of the students have already verified that by clicking on the little verify button in an email that we've sent to them. And if students haven't done that, the teachers are working towards getting them to do that. And we periodically have resent the invitation to verify their account. And what that does is it puts them in the Hanover Schools domain, Hanover students domain, and therefore the teachers can enable a feature that allows only people in that domain to join meetings. And you might be wondering why grades 3 through 12? Well, those are the kids that we actually have issued and have taught how to use their email address. Kids in pre-K 1 and 2 they're not drafting emails. They're not using emails. And in fact, I would probably say that 3 and 4 are very rarely using emails. But since 3 and 4 are using Google Classroom, having an enabled email does allow the teachers to use more of the features about communicating and responding and allowing the students to follow the workflow to submit materials. And so it makes sense for them to automatically sort of enable their Zoom account under the Hanover Schools umbrella. So if you have any more questions about that, just send me an email. Hopefully I'll answer most of the questions during this general session, but certainly if you have an individual question about maybe your student's verified Zoom account or anything else that is sort of more personal that you don't want to chat about or speak about tonight, then just shoot me an email and I'll make sure that your question gets answered. If I don't know the answer, someone does, I'm sure. The next thing I want to cover is how does Zoom actually work? Well, it's probably not the perfect title for this slide, but basically it works on any device. Internet-enabled device, the more modern, the better. It does require the internet, so either an Ethernet connection or Wi-Fi. But you can download the Zoom app on Chromebooks, on MacBooks, on Windows devices, Surface tablets, iPhones, Android phones, and you can use it on any of those devices. And you just really, once you have the app, you click on the link that the teacher provided and you can join the meeting. And so first question a lot of people ask is, what about the security? How secure is this? And I will say that, a few years ago, Zoom wasn't as secure as it is now. But now that Zoom is sort of the most commonly used web conferencing application that I see people using, I'm not sure if that's a real stat or if I just sort of made it up, but anecdotally, it's the one I see most people using. It seems to have the smoothest features, although you can imagine Google Meets is probably hot on their trail to make enhancements and get people using their tool as well. But it's important to know that we're committed to privacy security for all of us, the adults, the students, the parents, the teachers. And so everyone's working really hard to try to keep the Zoom meetings academically appropriate. So we ask the students to sit up, try to get at a table with a calm background. If they're going to turn their cameras off, we ask them to use their school photo to identify themselves. You'll see some examples that I have in a few minutes. And we also are working really hard to make sure that only the invited guests get into these meetings. And you've probably heard in the news about Zoom bombing, and to our best of our ability, we are avoiding that. And there's lots of ways to do that. One is how we provide the meeting links and what students do with them. And so we ask the teachers to post their meeting links in password protected environments, such as email or Google Classroom. And so we know only the authenticated users can get into those two places to get the link. We also ask teachers to enable the waiting room, which puts the people that have clicked on the link to get into the meeting in sort of a holding tank, so to speak. And the teacher can review those individuals and admit them when they see, they have the right username, the right account. We also, as I mentioned, can enable that authenticated users feature. We haven't turned it on wholesale because we don't want anybody to get locked out and miss a meeting, because for a young student, if they miss a meeting, they get locked out of a meeting because they are not using their authenticated account. That could be very, very stressful. So it's not on wholesale. Teachers are turning on when they know every single student has their account verified. In addition, it's important to kind of consider that some students, when they're at home, may be grabbing, the older brother's iPad or mom's phone or dad's Chromebook. And sometimes those devices are logged into multiple accounts. And so the teachers work hard to know the names of those students that are coming in and make sure that that's set up properly. And so in particular at Cedar School, kindergarten grade 1 and 2, we know the parents are using their accounts. It's not the students. Kindergarten is not logging into an email address. The other thing that teachers can do is once everyone's in the meeting, they can lock it. And there are a bunch of other settings that the teachers will be using to maintain the appropriate academic environment, as well as to promote good, clean collaboration to make sure the students are learning how to conduct themselves in an academic environment. As the kids get older, even a professional environment. I'm sure that our marketing and internship teachers are using this tool for kids to practice their job skills, interview skills and things like that. So there's plenty of work to be done, and it's good stuff. So you might now be wondering, well, how are the teachers actually using Zoom? What are they doing? And so the answer to that could be a longer list than this for sure. Teachers are teaching their entire lessons. Some teachers are using Zoom for the entire 45 or 90-minute period, and they're sort of live streaming the class to the students in front of them as well as to the students at home. Other teachers are using more of a flipped classroom model where they take attendance, they get the lesson started, maybe 15 minutes, give direction, and then they ask the students at home to close the Chromebook or the laptop, go off and do the work, and then rejoin the class maybe later on or maybe the next day. Other teachers are using Zoom to hold office hours. I saw a science teacher doing a lab demonstration the other day. I heard one of the elementary teachers talking about a show and tell lesson. I've seen some of the support staff pre-teaching lessons for students that are going to learn something new the next day in person. They wanted to kind of give them a little heads up. Sometimes teachers hold the Zoom lesson just to provide solutions to problems in math or science. I've seen several teachers using Zoom all by themselves, but recording it so that they can create an asynchronous lesson to provide to the students in a remote setting. I've seen teachers use small group breakout rooms for students to have discussion, share ideas, solve problems together, and then come back to the entire class meeting. And those are just some of, I'm sure, many ways that teachers are using Zoom. Probably some things I've never even considered. So I look forward to even learning more about how teachers are using it. And so this is just kind of a high-level overview of what people can do in Zoom. So the sort of high-level menu features are sharing screens, like I am doing now, recording a session, like Colleen is doing, so people can see this later. Teachers can annotate a screen, so they could go to, say, a web page and highlight, underline, circle things, or even just turn the whole screen into a whiteboard and draw on it. If they have a tablet or a stylus, they could actually, use a pen, a digital pen, to actually handwrite or to write out math or science problems, draw pictures. Teachers, as I mentioned, use the breakout rooms. They can put up polls so kids can answer questions and the teacher can get immediate feedback and share that with the students or not. Students can provide reactions. They can raise their hand, they can clap, they can put thumbs up. They can also say, you're going way too fast, slow down, or the opposite, you're going way too slow, speed up. And also there's a chat feature in Zoom, and the teachers have control over all these things, whether to use them, enable them, or not. And we'll see that in a few minutes on some of the screenshots I have to show everyone what it looks like. And so what can you control as a user? What can the student control? And this is kind of important. The students need to know that they have control over their screen name. They have control over what view they're using. They have control of their microphone and their video camera, and they can raise their hand, they can ask questions, and there are other things, but sort of the important takeaways are really the mute button. Students need to know when they're muted and not muted, and that's sort of the most important, I think, feature. And we'll see some of that in some of the screenshots I have. So let's just step through this. First of all, it's important to know that every screenshot I have in here is of me and my fake student, which I've enabled silly student, and at times I probably have named it something else. I also took a couple screenshots during the school committee meeting. I didn't ask anybody for permission, so hopefully that's okay. But it was a public meeting, so I think it's going to be okay. But I needed to show a couple of other features, and I needed a meeting to be able to grab that. So here goes. This is from the teacher's perspective, and the teacher is now using gallery view and looking at the entire class at the same time. In this example, there's just the teacher and one silly student. But I want to show you in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the teacher has quick settings where they can quickly lock a meeting. They can also set it up so that there's a waiting room. They can mute participants. They can allow participants to rename themselves or not. If they're using the authenticated user feature, I think they wouldn't allow them to rename themselves, so the username would be right there from their regular school account. The second screenshot is really just to give you a sense on that toolbar at the bottom of the screen. And so everyone has a toolbar of sorts. This is the teacher's version. So you can see the teacher has their own mute button and their own video button where they can start and stop their video screen, as well as manage the participants, control how chat is enabled. Generally speaking, teachers in Hanover allow the students to chat to the teacher, so to ask a question, but it's generally turned off for person-to-person chat or even student-to-whole group unless the teacher wants that as part of the lesson. It's usually private chat from the student to the teacher only. And then there's the share screen button, and then the polling button I mentioned. There's the ability for the teacher to record this if they want to record it for as an asynchronous lesson, as I mentioned. And then there's the breakout room. And then the reactions button is the one that says, you know, thumbs up and happy, yay, I don't understand this, or I do understand this. And so that's sort of the main control bar at the bottom. And then finally, this is kind of important for you to know that the teachers have quick control over every single student in the class, on the grid. And when they click on the upper right-hand corner of any student's picture, in this case, this silly student has their camera turned off, and you'll notice in the lower left-hand corner, I can also see they have their microphone turned off. So I can ask the student to unmute themselves. I can ask them to start their video. I could, in fact, make them the co-host if I wanted them to do something special. Or I could bounce them out to the waiting room. Or in fact, I could remove them from the meeting entirely. And so teachers need to know that, you know, in the event that they have an unwanted participant, or in fact, the student is just being, you know, silly or disruptive in some way, they might need to put them to the waiting room to go talk to them separately. And so that's an important thing that the teachers learn quickly, how to control and manage each individual student in the Zoom session. All right, when they click on those three little dots, they might want to put someone in the waiting room. So here you can see the reason I added this screenshot is because in the first one, I had the student's video camera turned off. And in the second one, I had the video camera turned on, and you'll notice the menu changed. I can actually turn the camera off. So the teacher could click on stop video and turn a student's video off if he or she was so inclined to do so. All right, from the student's perspective, the basics are the upper right-hand corner and the lower left-hand corner. In the upper right-hand corner, the student can select what kind of view they want to use. In this example, this is what is known as gallery view, more like the Brady Bunch view, where you get to see every participant in the Zoom meeting. And in the lower left-hand corner is where the student can quickly mute or unmute themselves or start and stop their video. Those are the two most important features of Zoom and being quick on the draw. The common joke is, oh, you're still on mute. You know, everyone's experienced I'm on mute. They start talking and then on mute. I'll probably do it tonight. In fact, maybe I'm on mute now and nobody said anything. Who knows? The difference between gallery view and speaker view is kind of pretty self-explanatory. The gallery view is when you can see everybody, and the speaker view is when you're seeing the teacher, the main speaker, and then everybody else appears in a small little strip, and I call it the film strip. This one happens to be at the top, but you can drag it down the side or even put it at the bottom if that's your preference. And in some of the instances, you'll notice that even in gallery view, the speaker is highlighted. So in this case, Mr. Geary on the school committee was speaking, and his little video screen has the green rectangle around it, indicating that he's speaking. So when you're using gallery view, sometimes you can lose sight of who's talking, and Zoom tries to help you by highlighting the speaker. All right, sometimes when you're sharing your screen and going back and forth, and next thing you know, you can't see, you've lost your Zoom. Like, where did it go? Where did it go? Where did it go? So what we recommend to the students is for them to move their mouse down to the bottom of the device's screen where they can see their sort of taskbar or control bar, and they'll be able to find that Zoom icon, and when they click it, they'll probably get their Zoom back. And sometimes the Zoom comes back only in the little teeny small window. So at that time, you might sometimes still have to click on the little expand arrow and bring the whole Zoom back. So yay, my Zoom meeting's back. And so that's important for the kids to have that experience once or twice, and the teachers too, because the teachers, when they're sharing the screen, sometimes it comes back and Zoom seems to be on another monitor or somewhere else. So those are the steps to get back to Zoom. All right, the next thing I want to jump through is some of the student controls. What can the students do? We talked a little bit about the teacher, but in this particular screenshot, you'll see the bottom menu bar has the mute and stop video buttons. Those are the most important. But then on the right-hand side, I've opened the chat, and I'm also showing you some of the controls the student has to raise their hand. And if they click on that little blue hand button, the teacher gets a little badge on their screen, and they'll know that somebody in the room has raised their hand. So then they can turn to that student and either unmute them or ask them to ask their question or read the chat. You also see here those pacing controls that the students can interact with. They can quick answer a question with the yes, no buttons. They can also suggest to the teacher that they can go faster or go slower based on their preference. And below that is the chat. You can see here the teacher has provided chat to the entire classroom, but the student's setting is to only message the teacher back privately, not to the whole group. So that's what I meant about private public chat before. So if the student types a message in here, it's only going to go to Mrs. Math Teacher, not to the whole class. The other thing that's important to know in the lower left-hand corner is that microphone button. That's the quick way students can mute themselves or unmute themselves, but also a quick way for them to change their settings. They might have earbuds or headphones, or they might want to test their microphone before a meeting. And so if they go here and they click on whichever microphone they're using, or click on settings, audio settings down at the bottom, they can go through and toy around with some of the settings to maybe suppress background noise or create original sound or whatever they feel as though is the best for their audio settings or their device. Similarly, we have video settings. So if you look in the lower left-hand corner again, there's a little video camera icon. When you click that, you can start and stop your video, or you can also change different devices. If you have multiple video cameras, depending on the device, or maybe you have an external camera, you could select it in this area. You can also change your background. You don't necessarily have to be in your dining room or wherever you may be. I'll stop sharing my screen and demonstrate that quickly. So in the lower left-hand corner, I'm clicking my video settings, and I'm choosing virtual background, and I can put myself out in space. Can you see that I'm in space now? You can create your own background if you so desire. So this is my living room where my television is at home, where I spent a lot of my time this spring. And I actually created a little video where I interrupted myself. I thought that was kind of interesting. But I will now set myself back to my own office and say hello. That was fun. Thanks for putting up with me. All right, so now I'm sharing my screen again. And the next slide is a little bit more about the chat. Well, actually, I already covered that. I mentioned that chat could be public or private. All right. Screen sharing. So at times, the teacher may ask the student to share their screen. By default, our teachers are asked to disable that so that students aren't sharing their screen and interrupting the lesson. But there are times in which it makes sense for a student to show their work. Maybe it's an art class and they're doing a little critique in AP Art. And so the students are going to share their digital work by clicking share screen. What the teacher needs to do is click on the little settings in her or his account and then change this from only host to all participants. And once the teacher has done that, then the students can actually share their work. And when they click share their work, they'll get a pop-up window like this. And it can be confusing at first because Zoom gives you the ability to share a singular application, an entire desktop, and if you have multiple monitors, multiple desktops. You also can see here that the Zoom has the ability to share an iPad via AirPlay or from a phone, as well as that whiteboard feature I had mentioned where the teacher can just draw on a blank whiteboard. And so in general, we ask the students to share a specific application instead of sharing their entire desktop and having the class see, you know, all the files that are on their desktop or multiple windows that are open. It may be better just to share a singular application like, you know, the website, Google Chrome or what have you. This is the last piece I want to mention about the students having accounts. So if the students have an account, they can host a meeting, right? And so I think it's important for we parents to know that. And so I think there's some considerations we should think about when our students may be hosting a meeting. And so I would ask that you review the account settings, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. And the three most important things I think are to discuss with your children about screen sharing. I would, generally speaking, have that disabled. Don't let the guest just immediately screen share. As I showed you with the teacher, it's turned off by default until he or she wants to turn it on. I think that's probably a prudent decision. And also, I would disable join before host. I wouldn't recommend having people join my meeting before I was there, because who knows what's happening when I'm not there, right? So I would be inclined to disable join before host. And then also private chat. I think in general, particularly when we're working with children, we want all the conversation to be visible and heard by everyone, especially the teacher. And so I would probably turn that off. And so private chat would allow the kids to essentially text message one another without anybody else in the room knowing it. Kind of like, you know, when I was a kid, we used to fold up pieces of paper in a triangle and launch them across the room to pass a note to somebody on the other side of the room. And, you know, when the teacher wasn't looking, it's kind of like note passing, but private chat is like that, but really easy to do. So I would turn that off. I also would recommend Zooming in a place where you know the internet is reliable. So close to your router or, you know, in school. Starbucks is pretty good. And I also would recommend practice Zooming. I think it's kind of fun. You probably could come up with a great family game, maybe a way to connect with grandparents or aunts and uncles or friends across town. It's kind of a nice way to do it and practice it in a safe way with some supervision. Key takeaways are the lower left and upper right-hand corners. The students and you need to know quickly how to mute and unmute yourself, start and stop your own video, and as well as change the views from the speaker view to the gallery view. Those are really the most important features that we have in Zoom. Before I go to my very last slide, I want to show you those settings I had mentioned. So let's jump back to my Zoom account. So let me show you what I'm doing here by sharing my screen again. And whoops, I'm going to sign out so you can see this from the start to finish. All right, so hopefully I did this right. Wait a minute. Let's try this. All right, so you can see my screen again. And what I've done is I've just gone to zoom.us. That's just the website. I haven't signed in or anything. So I go to zoom.us, and then I'm going to click the little sign in link in the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to click the sign in link. Many people are tempted to type their email address and password, but I would actually recommend signing in with Google. So in order to make sure you're signing with Google, one thing you can do is just sign into your device, sign into your Chromebook or your browser, but another is to make sure you've signed into your email. So if you've signed into your email, then you know you're good to go because you're in your Google account. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. And then once I'm in my Google account, I can scroll down and sign in with Google. So that does the authentication through my Google account, and it sort of knows me in Zoom. It's a partnership that they have. And so when I click sign in with Google, I'm logged in. And I know I'm logged in if I click on my name badge avatar icon in the upper right-hand corner, and you'll see it'll tell me my name and my school credentials. And you'll also see that as a teacher, I have a licensed account, which enables me to use all those features I mentioned earlier. But the students wouldn't say licensed, it would say basic, meaning if they host a meeting, they may not have all those features as well. Their meetings are capped at 40 minutes. Teachers can have meetings that last 24 hours. I don't know why that even makes any sense. But that's how you can sort of make sure that you're authenticated, verified, and you're using the school credentials to get in. I think that's an important feature that we want to make sure our students are using. So now back to this slide, and you're going to see the last one. Hey, yay! I really appreciate your time, and if you, as I said, if you have questions, please email, chat, ask, put them in the Q&A, or raise your hand now, and feel free to say anything you'd like. In good taste, of course. All right, peeps. I won't hold you any longer. I really appreciate your time for the 43 minutes that we were in this Zoom session. Actually, that was how long I was here. I bet you were only here for 36 minutes. This will be recorded and be posted through HCTV. And so you can find that link probably in your email from our tech team, as well as going to hctv.com, if that's the URL. I'd have to Google that one. Thank you very much. I hope you guys have a great night. Take care.